our special guest on empowering communities and building brands. May I request all of you to please put your hands together as we welcome Manisha Verma ji, IAS, Additional Chief Secretary and MD, Maharashtra Finance Corporation, Government of India. It is such a pleasure and honor that you could be a part of the evening. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion, ma'am. Please do put your hands together as she joins us.
Good evening to all of you. I'm quite delighted to be here amongst all of you in this ET Edge Iconic Brands of 2024. And I was wondering that why a civil servant has been called for this. Because we by training are actually taught to be anonymous, be faceless as a bureaucrat. And it's only recently that the government has taken up initiatives to brand its initiatives. But that is also at a macro level, at the national level. And it is certainly not the civil servants who are supposed to be marketing either themselves or their work. Of course, the young generation and the young colleagues of mine, they are now taking to technology and to social media and brand themselves. But come to think of it, what is a brand? I think it's a memory, it's a living entity that lives in our hearts and minds. I was just recalling that when I was assistant collector under training, we have a district training in which we are sent to a remote district. I was posted in Dhule district, which was a part, Nandurbar was also a part of that district. And I was against the wishes of the local MLA who was very powerful. I was sent by the district magistrate to serve in Shirpur block as a probationary block development officer, and which was 80 kilometers away from the headquarters and bordering Madhya Pradesh and Khargone district. And I took my first driving lessons over there on a Mahindra Jeep with the Panchayat Samiti driver, Deepak. I still recall that feel, that sense of autonomy, that sense of freedom. It was not about picking up a driving skill. It was more an expression of my freedom and, assertiveness, a sense of empowerment. And then later, when I was in another remote area in Kadwan in Nasik, I was taking my little child around in tribal area, 6 months old, with his feed of Cerelac and my help sitting next to me in a Maruti Gypsy. Again, because you remember those days, the design of Maruti Gypsy had a plastic kind of a thing on top, just one person who could sit. So either if I wanted my child next to me, either my maid could sit with him or the driver. So it was and I didn't want to compromise on my field work, so I was going around with him. And so that feel of that green color of that Maruti Gypsy in those days and the feel of the steering wheel, it is etched in my memory. And therefore, I think when the previous speakers were talking about branding, that it has a purpose, it is the customer's experience, it is how it makes you feel, and it's a kind of a trust. I think all that is true and much more. And if historically, if you were to ask me, my favorite brand builder is Gandhiji. Because if you think of creating those days, using khadi as a fabric was not about local production and make in India. It became a symbol of resistance to the British imperialism, a resistance, a symbol of non-cooperation to the high-handedness of the establishment, and it was all about freedom. And that legacy has endured. Even today, when we talk of khadi or a khadi brand, we think of tradition, we think of, empowerment, we think of a social purpose.
Coming to corporate examples, I'm not going to name too many who are being awarded here. So I talk of Amul. What began in Amul as a kind of Amul was a farmers' cooperative initiative. But its tagline then, Taste of India, it became a cultural touchstone. Every household can identify, though there may be number of brands available for milk and products. And I think as a civil servant now, at reasonably spending 3 decades in the government, now I see the government, and especially at the national level, has recognized the importance of positioning India and building brand. So you see whether it is Swachh Bharat or you see whether it is Digital India, which is positioning India and its prowess in IT and forefront of technology, whether it is Make in India, which is not about just local manufacturing, but positioning India as a brand, as a hub for manufacturing to attract foreign investment and to, express that India is the destination and the economic powerhouse of the future.
But as we are celebrating today the leaders, the pioneers of Indian industry, and all of you present here from different sectors, I still think, and we can celebrate this fact that, 100 top brands, I'm told, have contributed to $150 billion in 2023. I would still, because having spent all my years uh, in, in serving people and in the remotest of areas, and I still go for field visits whenever I can say that there's still a huge socio-economic and digital divide in this country. And therefore, whenever we are talking of brands, we have to also think of inclusion, and we have to also think of tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because brands and services and products are just not for bigger cities and metros. They should also fulfill the customers' expectation, the citizens' problems and pain points in these far-flung areas. And they are not so far-flung also. And you might be surprised to find very, very inspiring stories who can be your brand ambassadors. It is not always looking at celebrities to endorse your products and services. I mean, when I was looking at tribal department, I was heading it. When I was 25 years ago, when I was project officer, I was talking about traveling with my younger son, a little child, and that time there were instances that I was reporting deaths in tribal ashram schools, residential schools, because the girl students there got bit by snake going to toilets in the wee hours in the jungles. These are all residential schools in forest areas. And later on, almost 28 years later, when I became the secretary to head that department, I took a Kaya Palat Abhiyan. So Kaya Palat stands for transformation. And we procured 200 crores of furniture. And I took a pledge on 2nd October in 2017 that no child, there were 2.5 lakh children studying and living in ashram schools across the state, that no child will sleep on the floor, study on the floor, or eat on the floor. We will make sure that they have a dignified life. And I met the top management. I visited the manufacturing units of Spacewood, of Godrej, and everywhere. I talked to the top management. I said that we are going to do absolutely in a transparent way. But these are the children. This is God's work for you. You are going to give the best of, furniture, whether it's bunk beds or benches or desks, to them. Children who've never experienced a cot or a bed, either in their hamlets, at their homes, or in schools. And it was a remarkable kind of response that I got, and we fulfilled our dream. So I kept thinking that these children who will access quality education with a dignified life and sitting on, your Godrej benches, I'm just taking an example. It could be an Apsara pencil, or it could be a Reynolds pen, or it could be a Camlin color box. Why can't these children, when they become doctors and scientists and artists tomorrow, why can't they be your brand ambassadors? They are your potential consumers. They are community influencers. And why are we always celebrating celebrities and looking up to them and not looking at the champions coming from these areas? Similarly, I took to Facebook to write something about our work. I never did it for more than 2 decades. The first post that I put about our students was when I had trained students who had never traveled even in train from Chandrapur area. They had not even gone to Nagpur, from our ashram schools to scale Mount Everest. I called it Mission Shaurya because when I joined the department, I got the experience that children have very, very low self-esteem. People call them backward. The teachers also address like that. So in a flat 1 year's time, we trained them for rock climbing, we trained them for high altitude mountaineering, and in less than a year, 8 out of 14 children, they climbed Mount Everest. And when they did so, the Honorable PM mentioned them in their Mann Ki Baat. They were felicitated at his residence with the president. And I was just thinking, that was the time I was talking to industry. Of course, we did all their felicitation, gave them big cash awards. But I was just looking at industries that time. And I was thinking why their success story is not a matter of joy or pride. Or why can't they be brand ambassadors for the shoe brand that they sported, or the North Face or whatever fleece jackets we bought for them, or their gears. So by telling these stories, I'm just giving you another perspective. Of course, our interest always is to get our deliveries faster of the cuisines that we like. But then there is another world in this country, and that is a big market for you to address, to meet their expectations. It is just not about inclusivity. I think there is a whole opportunity waiting out there which needs to be tapped. And your strategies and your whatever, your strategies should address them. That is what I am saying. And I think if we have to look at the future of branding, then obviously the key principles would always be agility, would always be anticipating trends, willingness to embrace new technologies, and also to look at the issue of sustainability. Because we now know now for sure that we cannot sit contented with profits alone, as we say that we have to look both at the planet and the people also. The government role is also always going to be important in this landscape of India's growth story by giving right policy frameworks, by giving the right incentives, by creating ease of business in the right sense and not just as a lip service. I'm sure all of us here, the corporate leaders, the policy makers, the professionals, will come together to create a growth story and India's brand story that is really incredible. And as it is said that your brand is what is talked about when you are not in the room, I'm sure we can create a very, very endearing and very enduring story of India's brand. And I would say that nothing is really impossible. That is what my humble experiences working with the last people on the margins have shown. It is just about resolution. It is just about dreaming high and aiming high. जैसे किसी शायर ने कहा है, कौन कहता है आसमां में सुराख हो नहीं सकता, एक पत्थर तो तबीयत से उछालो यारो. So all the best to all of you. Congratulations. My heartiest congratulations to all the awardees today, the brands who will be felicitated today.
And thank you for giving me this platform and listening to me. Thank you.